Good evening. I'm Captain Ed Flynn. Welcome to an exciting 13 weeks of Firefighter, a story about New Haven's bravest. Tonight, Chapter 1 is entitled A View from the Top, and our guest is Fire Chief John Reardon. Welcome, Chief Reardon.
Good evening, Ed.
What services does the Fire Department render to the city of New Haven?
Well, the mission of the department is to protect the citizens and the visitors of New Haven from injury due to fire, protect their property, and also to provide an emergency medical service in the event of trauma or illness. To provide this service requires a total commitment from each and every member of the department. We feel the best fire suppression is a very effective fire prevention program. That starts with the Office of the Fire Marshal, where the State Fire Safety Code and the Fire Prevention Code of the City of New Haven is enforced. When we have a fire, I consider that to be a failure in the fire prevention system. But that's where the suppression forces of the department come into play, not only to respond to fire emergencies, but non-fire emergencies. I could point out to last June when we had the 100-year flood, when the department was called on in a period of probably 6 days for 800 calls for assistance because of flooding. The emergency medical service, the advanced life support units, the paramedic units, we respond 3 of those units. Last year they responded close to 10,000 times in the city to provide an emergency medical service for the citizens and visitors of New Haven. We're very active in a community service program under a Director of Community Relations, where we will meet with any group in the city of New Haven, from the youngest to the oldest, and provide tips on fire prevention within your environment. And then, of course, if there is a fire, what a person should do to protect for their own safety.
It is said that the heartbeat of any emergency service is its communication division, where the calls for help are initially received. How do you rate the present system in New Haven?
Well, I think that our communication system would be rated as one of the best in the nation. It's a system where we monitor and triage 350 to 400,000 calls a year. We've increased the effectiveness of that division this year with the implementation of a ComStore dispatch system, which is a data storage system which provides our officers with pre-fire plan information on electronic printers within the fire stations on the receipt of an alarm. We have also replaced our antiquated low-band radio system with a new 800 megahertz system, which provides for more effective communications on the fire ground.
Arson, the fastest growing crime in America, was at an all-time high in the mid-1970s in New Haven, when more than 50% of structural fires were suspicious or incendiary in nature. Today, in 1983, New Haven has a foothold on this crime, while other urban cities in the country are still plagued with this problem. What has been done in New Haven to address this problem?
Well, the initiating action in New Haven was the sitting of a grand jury in 1975 and 76 to investigate the incendiary fire problem in the city. That report of that judge was released in February of 77 and caused certain things to happen in the city. We were found lacking in our capability and ability to investigate fires. We now work very closely with the New Haven Police Department, the Office of the State's Attorney for this judicial district. We have a fire investigative unit, which totals 7 people, comprised of police officers and fire investigators, who are probably the top investigative unit in this area. We have an arson warning and prevention system, which was developed through a grant from Aetna Life and Casualty, which allows us to identify buildings at risk to arson. And over the past 6 years, since 1977, we have seen a dramatic reduction in the incendiary rate in the city of New Haven.
Fire deaths and injuries have been reduced in recent years on a national level. What do you attribute this to?
Well, my feeling is that the one dramatic thing that's occurred in the last 10 years in fire prevention and fire safety is the use of smoke detectors. I think we've seen a reduction in the national fire loss of from 8,500 to about 6,500. That's one thing that has been a change. I think we're doing a better job of enforcing the State Fire Safety Code and the Fire Prevention Code of the City of New Haven. And an awareness of the role of a firefighter in the fire prevention efforts of the department, I think also leads to that reduction in life loss.
On January 24th, 1957, one of the most devastating fires in New Haven occurred at 62 Franklin Street. When it was all over, 15 people had died and 25 were injured. Why did so many people have to die?
Well, the building was an old building, probably built in the area of the Civil War. Wide open spaces, non-sprinklered, large vertical openings throughout the building which allowed for the rapid spread of fire. And quite frankly, there was an inadequate fire escape on one side of the building. So all of those things put together led to that large loss of life and injury.
What is the target hazard area in the city of New Haven with the greatest fire potential?
Well, probably the greatest fire potential in the city of New Haven is in our flammable bulk storage on the East Shore. We have some 375 million gallons of flammable liquid in storage. However, the private sector, the petroleum companies, are most cooperative with the Department of Fire Service. The most up-to-date fire extinguishing systems are installed at those tanks. We have foam lines that run out to the piers, dike areas to contain leaks. Fortunately, we have an excellent record in this city in that particular area.
One of your biggest disappointments has been the decommissioning of the fireboat Sally Lee in 1980 due to economic cutbacks. What are the chances of seeing the boat return to duty to protect New Haven's most natural resource, its harbor?
I think the chances of the Sally Lee coming back into service at this point are excellent. It may not be on duty for 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, but I feel that it will be on duty to cover the peak periods of movement of product within the harbor.
What are your views on women in the fire service, and when will we see them in New Haven?
Well, my views on women in the fire service are that anybody is entitled to be a firefighter that can do the job, whether it be a female or a male. I think that we will see some female firefighters appointed to the department today, and they will probably be in the training school sometime before the end of March.
Do you feel that the women firefighters would be able to get through the stringent training as given at the Fire Training Academy?
Well, they've reached this point. They certainly passed a very difficult agility examination to get into the department, and I have great hopes that they're going to successfully complete not only their training at the academy, the 7 weeks, but I feel very strongly that they'll complete their year's probation.
What determines the fire protection rating that is given to the City of New Haven by the Insurance Service Organization?
Well, the rating is determined by the ISO coming in and looking at the fire suppression capabilities of a municipality. We were rated just a few years ago. They look at the water distribution system within the city. They look at the communications activity of the department. They look at the department. They look at manpower. They look at apparatus. They look at training. They look at equipment. And they put a rating on that. Now, the rating is 1 to 10. The class rating, 10 being the lowest that you can achieve. New Haven enjoys a rating of a Class 2 city. There are probably 50 Class 2 cities in the United States, and we're very, very proud of that rating from the ISO.
Are there any other Class 2 cities in the state of Connecticut?
Yeah, I think Hartford is a Class 2 city also, and West Hartford.
What are the general working conditions of the firefighter?
Well, they're very, very difficult. If we're talking about the working conditions of a firefighter when he responds to a working fire. No one knows when fire will strike. It can be the coldest of weather. It can be the hottest of weather. The conditions, the arduous, laborious tasks that they have to perform at a fire are quite literally, I think they're beyond description. Extremely difficult job.
In the summer of 1981, the New Haven Regional Fire Training Academy was dedicated. The facility is one of the most modern in the country. What type of training does a rookie firefighter undergo before going off to their first alarm?
Well, he reports to the training academy after appointment to the department. He will undergo basic firemanship training at the academy. That's the skills that are necessary to advance hose lines, direct water on fire streams, to bring ladders to the scene of a fire. Basic firemanship manual skills are required at the training academy. The other skills necessary of a firefighter, pump operation, aerial ladder operation, etc., those skills will be developed after he finishes the probationary academy.
Do you feel that our training that we have here in New Haven is probably one of the finest in the country?
I don't think it's one of the finest. I think it is the finest.
In past years, many visitors from foreign countries have had the occasion to visit the Fire Training Academy, and I understand that the raves of our people from overseas were quite high on what they learned here.
We have people visit us. We also train people from various states. We train people from all over the state of Connecticut. We've trained people from as far away as Saudi Arabia, Germany, England, Canada. So our reputation is well known throughout the world.
Very good. We're going to be coming right back right after this commercial with Chief John Reardon of New Haven Fire Department.
I'm Susan St. James, and these kids are special to me because they appear in my television show. These kids are special to me because they're a part of the Connecticut Special Olympics. They set examples each day which enrich the lives of everyone they meet. These programs build winners, and they need your support. Call toll-free to pledge your support or write to Special Olympian in care of the Connecticut Special Olympics, P.O. Box 9, Stratford, Connecticut, 06497.
There are over 200 challenging and rewarding careers in agriculture.
Challenging and rewarding careers. Think about it.
A message from the FFA.
We're back live here with Chief John Reardon, and we're talking about Chapter 1, A View from the Top. Chief, in the summer, at a fire, several different types of apparatus respond. What is the specific assignment of these units? For instance, the fire pump.
Well, on a box alarm of fire in the city of New Haven, where we have multiple units responding, we have engine companies whose primary responsibility is the application of water to the fire for extinguishment. Aerial ladder companies whose primary responsibility is the ventilation of the building to relieve the toxic products of combustion and relieve the pressures within the building so our engine company people can advance their hose lines within the building to extinguish. We also respond today tactical units, which are manpower units who arrive at the fireground and operate at the discretion of the fireground commander. What is the most necessary thing happening at that fire? If it was a life safety situation, then the tactical unit would be assigned to that. If suppression was the problem that was most pressing at that time, they would be assigned to that. They could be assigned to ventilation procedures, salvage procedures, the covering of property that's exposed to fire and to water. We also respond an emergency unit, an ALS unit in the event that someone within the building has suffered an injury from fire, or in fact one of our firefighters is injured at the fire. Also, depending on the response in the district within the city, will respond a battalion chief and a deputy chief.
At the fire, the chief officer is in charge, and basically he run the fire scene. What happens at multiple alarm fires?
Well, multiple alarm fires on a multiple alarm in New Haven, on response, we'll get one of the either the department executive officer or the department operations officer, and I will respond. Most instances, we leave the handling of the fire if it's not required of us to the chief officers that are on duty at that time.
How about injuries to the firefighters? How quick are they taken to the hospital?
Well, depending on the seriousness of the injury. If the injury were one that would require stabilization of that firefighter on the fire ground, then that would be done with the Advanced Life Support Unit. If it was a question of a firefighter suffering a minor injury that required medical attention at the hospital, he'd be transported rather rapidly to the facility.
Thousands of airplanes fly in and out of Tweed New Haven Airport during the course of the year. How is the department equipped to handle any problem that may occur at the airport?
Well, we have a fire station that's located on Lighthouse Road, right close to Morris Causeway. They are the first units to respond to the airport. We have established protocol for operations at the airport, depending on the type of emergency, whether it would be minor or major. The primary firefighting unit for the airport is a combination unit that has the capability of dispelling dry chemical and light water on a aircraft that could be involved in fire. Also, on a box alarm to the airport, we would respond a foam unit from Woodward Avenue, and we also respond a chemical carrier from Central Station at Grand Avenue, plus engine companies and ladder companies as needed.
How effective are the proximity suits that the men manning the crash unit at the airport would be?
Well, they're proximity suits. That means that you can get very, very close to the fire, close enough to the fire so that those firefighters would be able to use hand lines in the extinguishment of the fire, either in the aircraft, around the aircraft, or whatever.
So basically, one of the reasons for getting close is to make sure that a path of exit is provided for any occupants which may be on the airplane.
The primary responsibility of the unit at the airport, if there is an aircraft involved in fire, is to get to that aircraft and to open up a path so that egress can be made from the aircraft.
High-rise fires have taken a devastating toll in this country. Modern high-rise buildings thought to be safe have caused many injuries and deaths in this decade. Can an MGM fire occur in New Haven?
Well, we would hope that it wouldn't. But could it? Yes, it could happen in New Haven. Any building that has a large census in it that is not sprinklered is subject to the possibility of a large loss of life due to fire. There are buildings in the city of New Haven, high-rise buildings, that are totally sprinklered. There are others that were constructed before the state statute that mandates sprinklers within a building. They're not sprinklered. Certain sections of them are sprinklered. There is fire protection built into those buildings, fire pumps that will give us adequate fire streams on whatever floor we might be operating on, smoke detectors, heat detectors, means of egress from the building, enclosed stairways. But I don't think a building is totally safe unless the building is totally sprinklered.
How are we prepared as firefighters to attack a fire in a high-rise building?
Well, we have standard operating procedures for high-rise buildings. The procedures specify what each responding company does. Our first consideration in the case of a high-rise fire is to get to the floor of involvement and to be sure that we do everything possible to provide for the safety of the people on that floor. We also, because of the very nature and physics of fire, want to get above that fire and remove people who would be above the fire. The products of fire, the heat and the smoke, are what kill people. The amazing plastics that are on the market today that produce these incredible gases. People don't die from carbon monoxide poisoning anymore. They die from cyanide poisoning. They die from the chlorides. And those are the things that we have to contend with.
The elevators in these high-rise buildings, how would you go about using them?
The fire service?
Fire service.
Fire service can take manual control of an elevator. I would advise any citizen, any visitor to the city of New Haven, if you are in a building where a fire occurs and there are elevators in that building, do not use the elevators. Too many people have been incinerated in elevators and fires in high-rise buildings.
We've come a long way from the bucket brigades with the advent of the modern pumpers designed to deliver thousands of gallons of water per minute. Is there any new equipment in the future for the New Haven Fire Department?
Yes, there is. We have just awarded a contract to a manufacturer for an elevating platform. It is a piece of aerial equipment that on the end of the ladder there is a platform which will allow us to do things tactically on the fire ground that we have not been able to do previously. Fire equipment today is very, very expensive. A piece of equipment of that type costs in the neighborhood of $310,000. Fire pumps, pumping engines, are in the neighborhood of $110,000 to $150,000. We will be looking to renovate and refurbish some of our first-line pumps in the next year, but the only new piece of equipment that we will have in the next year will be the elevating platform.
The fire pumps that we had years ago seem to be going out. We now have pumps with cab overs. No longer is it necessary for the firefighter to ride the back step of the apparatus, but to use the so-called jump seats. What are your feelings on the new type of apparatus?
Well, certainly the apparatus today, particularly that the apparatus is diesel-powered, automatic transmissions, makes for a much smoother ride. It requires less training on our part in regards to the manual stick shift. I have mixed feelings in regards to the bucket seats on apparatus. I still think that there should be a firefighter on the back step, particularly when you look at the type of tactics that we use in the New Haven Fire Department, inline pumping, etc., where we grab a hydrant on the way in rather than laying away.
With a fleet of 10 engine companies, 6 hook and ladder trucks, 2 tactical units, 3 emergency units, and other heavy-duty equipment, how does the department cope with the necessary repairs and maintenance of the equipment?
Well, we cope very well, and the reason for that is that we have a group of special mechanics in our department who work under a supervisor of motor apparatus. When the training facility was built on the boulevard, a new garage was provided at that time for the repair of our equipment. Repair of fire apparatus and continual preventive maintenance program is all important, and we are into that now. We feel very strongly by conducting PM on the apparatus every 6 months, we are going to prevent some of those most expensive repairs that take place if you didn't have that type of a program.
The first-line equipment, when it breaks down, and apparently it does at times, what does the department do?
Well, we have spare pieces, spare pumping apparatus. We have 2 diesel pumps that are now spare apparatus. We have a 100-foot aerial tractor trailer. That's a spare piece of apparatus. And we have a 75-foot straight aerial ladder that would be able to be put into Westville or into the East Shore side of the city if we had a breakdown in an apparatus. And actually, when we bring a piece of equipment in for preventive maintenance, you don't do that in one day. So that second-line apparatus is placed in service rather than taking that piece of equipment out of service totally.
Firefighters of the past were identified as smoke eaters, and the term iron men and wooden ladders was frequently used. How would you describe the firefighter of today?
Well, the firefighter of today, his problems are a little bit different, I think. Even in the time that I've been in the department, I've seen the fire problem change from one of where you dealt with accidental fires, and then we had the incendiary fire problem of the late 60s and into the 70s. The development of hazardous materials, the incredible amount of plastics that are readily available everywhere and are subject to combustion, make smoke eating a pretty difficult thing to do today. I think a firefighter today who wears a unit of self-contained breathing apparatus is capable of doing a much better job than one who would be a leather-lunged smoke eater.
How about the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland? Do you plan on sending any of our firefighters down there for this kind of training that the FBI would have at an FBI training academy?
Well, we have sent officers from the department to Emmitsburg. The facility is an outstanding facility. It trains in leadership. It trains in arson investigation. It trains in planning, executive development. It's a very difficult school to get into. The waiting list is over a year. I've had officers in our department indicate to me that they would like to go to the academy. They have submitted applications for entry into the courses, and we now have to wait for our turn to get into some of the classes.
You have been watching Chapter 1, A View from the Top. Our guest has been Fire Chief John Reardon. We hope you'll be with us next week for Chapter 2, The Making of a Firefighter. Your host will be Captain Thomas Cacase, and his guest will be Matthew Lyons, Director of Training.
I'm Susan St. James, and these kids are special to me because they appear in my television show. These kids are special to me because they're a part of the Connecticut Special Olympics. They set examples each day which enrich the lives of everyone they meet. These programs build winners, and they need your support.
You will receive our thanks, an MVP Special Olympics certificate and decal, plus the Guinness Book of Olympic Records.
Call toll-free to pledge your support or write to Special Olympian in care of the Connecticut Special Olympics, P.O. Box 9, Stratford, Connecticut, 06497.
You're a winner by supporting these winners. Please call her right now. Thank you.